Ranking Member Lucas for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. General, I couldn't help but note you mentioned Kansas examining the implementation of a residential safe room program, very similar to what we're doing in Oklahoma. And with, in the average year, 80 deaths, 1,500 injuries, it would seem that that's a critically important one, and I bring that up for a couple of reasons. One, my understanding is there's not been a single reported failure of a safe room if it was constructed to FEMA's criteria. That's pretty impressive. I also note that back in 1999, along with Congressman J.C. Watts, I represented part of South Oklahoma City. He represented Moore. I represented part of Dell City also. But we had an F5 roll through, some estimates 300-mile-an-hour winds, and the path was such, I've seen tornadoes in Oklahoma that were destructive, but this one literally not only picked the asphalt up from the streets, it pulled all the grass out of the ground. But when we flew the path afterwards, and President Clinton came down at the time, the amazing thing to me was this string of little concrete boxes in the path that survived. Touch for a moment, if you would, on the importance of collaborating with other states in these kind of programs. And if you would, my final point, and of course I'm very proud of NOAA and the National Weather Service's facilities at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Discuss with us for a moment, whether you have a safe room or not, the difference that the last 2 decades have made, where we've gone from an average of 7 minutes warning to 14 minutes warning. If you touch on that too.
Ranking Member Lucas, thank you for the question. I too have seen far too many tornadoes, and I am always amazed at what Mother Nature can do with regards to what it will take out and what it will leave, and just the overall destructive damage. From a collaboration perspective, what we have found working with Oklahoma, Ohio, and a number of other states is that looking at their programs, it doesn't mean that we'll actually implement it the same way, because while they have, each state, each region has its own certain dynamics that it must kind of work through. But what we found is there's always a willingness to share that information between the state hazard mitigation officers and even at my level about how we can prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters in a better manner. With respect to what we do with National Weather Service and where it really comes out of the Storm Prediction Center, going back a number of years being involved in this field, what I am amazed with is that the precise nature at which we can provide advance warning that didn't exist 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago, and I can't tell you or quantify the lives saved because of that advance warning. And it really is, we stress a lot at the local level about everybody has a role to play. So individual citizens need to be prepared. They need to have a plan in the event of emergency. We talked to them about tuning into their local weather channel during times of significant weather to be apprised. They can log in their own street address so that they're notified of when a particular storm track may hit their area so that they can take the necessary precautions. Those things didn't exist before, and so I think that as technology continues to get better, that notification and the benefit that that has will continue to increase. But I've also noticed on the other side, there's some hesitance in individuals because they'll look at that map and say, oh, well, it's not exactly over my house, it's a half a mile away. Or living in Oklahoma or Kansas, the number of individuals that will go out and stand on their porch or on a deck and look to see where the tornado's at. You know, I'm constantly reminded about those things that sometimes if you've seen one tornado, you probably don't want to stand and see the second one.
The often used description at home is when you hear the freight train coming down the tracks, it's on you. But when you hear the freight train, it's too late. That 14 minutes means the difference between getting your children, your dog, your spouse, your neighbors into that concrete box with you. But again, based on history, if you build your safe room to standards, you're going to survive, right, General? If you're in that safe room.
That is exactly correct. I don't know the statistic of anybody that's been pulled out of a safe room dead.
Point made. Thank you, General. Yield back.